Welcome. I'm Mark Gordon, and I'm a teacher and a learner. And welcome to the podcast, Questions They Didn't Ask in High School. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about space and why that's fundamentally important. And we joke about space, the final frontier. I think Star Trek had it half right. What about inner space? Can we create space in there? So it's one of those questions they didn't ask us in high school. And why is it really important to have that skill for your toolkit? Well, it's a bottom line 101 basic, just like reading, writing, and arithmetic. We've repeatedly found that these are the skills they're not teaching. Now, what is it about space that we should know? If you're feeling trapped, if you're feeling uneasy, if you're feeling just like life's not going well, you're still learning. You're learning that this is a place that's not very friendly. And that's what they don't understand. We're always learning. But what kind of learning? So we're going to show you a different way. I want to start with a story about a former student of mine. His name was Jimmy, and he was sitting in the back of the room, 10 feet away from everybody else. He wanted to be alone. And all he did was, he didn't do any of the assignments. All he did was draw. And I was told by a number of other faculty of what his story was. He was going through a consistent, constant trauma. He was living it. And it was really difficult to process. And he needed some time alone. He needed a place where he could just be. And he wasn't being annoying, not to anyone, just drawing. So for the first week, I let that happen. The second week, I walked over and I said to him, Jimmy, if you're not going to do any of the assignments, you're not going to get any credit, but you're welcome to stay here. Because I sort of knew that he was listening to our conversations. We've had a lot of conversations in that class. And there I saw his drawings with these intricate, ornate, complex characters of the devil and his minions. And he was skilled, even with the subject. So I understood he was working things out. That's what he needed to do at the time. I just left him alone. A couple weeks later, the idea hit. Whoa, we're near the end of September. What if we created a haunted house in our room? It was a really large room. And who knows, maybe I can get 5 or 6 kids to get into this project. Because again, a lot of these kids are feeling rejected. They're at this school because they haven't done well in other schools for a million other reasons. I always felt they were smart, if not smarter, than the other high school students in other schools, even in really smart other high schools, because they had lived, they had suffered, they knew what failure was about. So the idea was, okay, haunted house. Anybody want to join? And Jimmy did. So Jimmy and his cohorts started to build. We had construction going on in the room, and some lattice work and some 2x4s, and it was lots of measuring, lots of actual construction. And as time went by and it got closer and closer, that week of Halloween, where each individual class came in to visit, was absolutely, it was a treat and a trick. There were lots of them. There were ghoulish sounds. There were music that scared you. There was lights going on and off. There was people's hands and arms coming through the walls to try to touch you. There was grapes that were peeled when people got blindfolded, and it felt like you were touching eyeballs. And the day of Halloween, we had a dance, and it was better than anybody could have expected. It was the event of the year at the school. And it was wonderful to see all the people participating in it who built it be very proud, as they damn well should have been. And especially to see Jimmy, by the way, that's not his real name. He was filled with pride. He was filled with a sense of accomplishment. And the most amazing thing is that he was never the same again. He came back in, joined the class. He was doing a number of the assignments, and he was able to contain the trauma. It didn't go away, but he was able to contain the trauma so it was manageable. A few years later, we learned that he's now a member of a punk rock band that's touring that has 3 CDs out. And we're all just so happy, he made it. And that is the reason why you give people space, especially kids who are hurting. Because before any positive, true, healthy learning can happen, you have to feel safe emotionally, physically, and mentally. And that's what Jimmy was feeling. With Jimmy feeling safe in his outer space, he allowed more room inside for inner space. He was able to break the pattern of jailing himself inside with negative thoughts. And so once that happens, you can have this interplay between outer and inner where they can mesh, where there's a sense of rhythm. And that's the kind of thing of what is it? How does that feel inside when you are in a sense of rhythm, when you are feeling that inner space? And you'll know it by, well, it could be a whole bunch of things, actually. You can feel stimulated. You can feel relaxed, and they're not mutually exclusive. Time doesn't mean what it has always meant. You forget about your worries and your anxieties, and you start to feel more open. You tend to laugh and smile more. I know that's a really clear way I can see where my inner space is by just checking that metric. You feel more confident. You're not afraid to make mistakes, and they're not mistakes. You look at things as experiment and modify. And if one doesn't work out, you go to the next. No guilt, no shame, no blame. And so that's what Jimmy began to feel. And that's a way for you to understand, well, that's what I want to feel. I want to feel that sense of peace while I'm also in the middle of action. And it becomes more of an adventure. Life becomes more exciting. And so when you are able to use outer space for inner space, or outer space, we had a visitor who loved outer space. Just the opposite of where Jimmy started. Let me show you.
Folks, it's me, Rex the Explorer. I have discovered a beautiful aspen grove. Check this out. And wow, what is that? That's the biggest ball I've ever seen. Oh, I hope it doesn't Indiana Jones me. Oh, not Oh. Oh. Hey, I'm still alive. I just had a scratch, so I'm up and running again.